Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel General Hospital today. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The rain-slick streets of Port Charles glistened under the harsh glow of sodium street lamps, casting long shadows that danced like ghosts across the weathered brick facades of the old town. It was a city built on secrets, where the harbor's salty breath mingled with the whispers of betrayal, and tonight, those whispers had grown into a roar. Elizabeth Weber gripped the steering wheel of her modest sedan, her knuckles white against the black leather, as she navigated the winding roads toward the Port Charles Police Department. Her heart pounded in her chest, a frantic rhythm that echoed the storm brewing overhead. Lightning cracked the sky, illuminating the passenger seat where a small, sealed envelope lay, its edges frayed from Aiden's anxious fingers. Aiden, her youngest son, sat beside her, his 11-year-old frame hunched forward, eyes fixed on the envelope as if it held the key to unlocking some ancient curse. He was Lucky Spencer's boy through and through, those piercing blue eyes, the tousled blonde hair that refused to stay combed, and a stubborn streak that could move mountains or shatter families. But tonight, that stubbornness had morphed into something fiercer. Determination. "Mom," he said softly, his voice barely audible over the wiper's relentless swish. "You think they'll believe me? I mean, really believe us?" Elizabeth glanced at him, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "They have to, Aiden. The truth is on our side this time." But even as she said it, doubt gnawed at her. Port Charles had a way of twisting truths into knots, especially when they involved the Spencers. Lucky had been gone for years, chasing ghosts in Europe, rebuilding himself after the wreckage of his marriage to Lulu, after the custody battles and the endless cycle of addiction and redemption. He'd left Aiden behind, not out of cruelty but necessity, or so he'd claimed in those sporadic postcards from Amsterdam or Paris. Now, with Lulu in a coma, her body failing from years of limbo, Lucky had returned like a specter, summoned by the family's desperate plea for his liver to save her. And in his wake, he'd stirred up the embers of old flames, old wounds. But this wasn't about Lucky's homecoming, not directly. This was about Elizabeth, teetering on the edge of ruin. Accusations had flown like daggers in the past weeks. Tampering with evidence in the high-profile Drew Quartermain shooting, whispers of favoritism at General Hospital, ties to the shadowy dealings of the Cassadine Empire that never quite faded. The PCPD, under Commissioner Anna Devane's watchful eye, had zeroed in on her as a suspect, their investigation fueled by anonymous tips and a mounting pile of circumstantial evidence. Elizabeth's nursing license hung by a thread, her reputation in tatters, and worst of all, the fear that her boys, Cameron, Jake, and Aiden, might be dragged into the crossfire. She'd fought it alone, stonewalling questions, burning midnight oil to clear her name, but the walls were closing in. Then Aiden had come home from school one drizzly afternoon, his backpack slung low, pink paint splattered across the straps like accusatory blood. He'd brushed it off at first, a prank he'd said, nothing more. But Elizabeth knew her son, the way his shoulders slumped, the flicker of guilt in his eyes. Under gentle prodding, the story tumbled out. He'd overheard something he shouldn't have at the park near the Quartermain estate, a hushed conversation between two figures in dark coats, one mentioning the nurse and making sure she takes the fall. Aiden, ever the protector, had followed them, snapped blurry photos on his phone, but in his haste he'd tripped an alarm or drawn attention, enough to get chased, enough to get that paint flung as a warning. The photos were grainy, the voices distorted in the audio clip he'd managed to capture, but they pointed to a setup, a frame job aimed squarely at her. And the ringleader? None other than Heather Weber, Elizabeth's own mother, the deranged specter who'd clawed her way back from Ferncliff's depths, her mind a labyrinth of vengeance. Heather, with her web of connections to the criminal underbelly, had fixated on Elizabeth as the embodiment of all her failures, all her lost chances at a normal life. It was Heather who'd planted the forged documents, who'd bribed a low-level orderly to slip inconsistencies into Elizabeth's shift logs. But Aiden's evidence, those photos, the audio, a hastily scribbled note from one of the goons that had fluttered from a pocket during the scuffle, could unravel it all. They pulled into the PCPD lot just as thunder rumbled, a deep growl that seemed to emanate from the heart of the city itself. The building loomed, a squat fortress of justice riddled with as many scandals as solved cases. Elizabeth killed the engine, the sudden silence amplifying the patter of rain on the roof. "Stay close," she murmured, tucking the envelope into her coat. Aiden nodded, his small hand slipping into hers as they dashed through the downpour, the cold droplets stinging like accusations. Inside, the bullpen buzzed with the usual chaos. Detectives hunched over desks piled with files, the acrid scent of stale coffee mingling with printer ink, phones trilling like alarmed birds. Dante Falconeri looked up from his paperwork, his dark eyes sharpening as he spotted them. "Liz? Aiden? What brings you here at this hour?" His tone was warm, but laced with the cop's instinctive wariness. Dante had always been the bridge between worlds, the son of sunny Corinthos, yet tethered to the Spencers through Lulu, his ex, now trapped in that hospital bed. Elizabeth swallowed hard, her throat dry. "Dante, I need to see Anna. It's urgent." "About the investigation." She held up the envelope, its contents burning a hole in her palm. Dante's brow furrowed, but he didn't hesitate, waving them toward the commissioner's office. "She's wrapping up a briefing on the Brennan case. Jason's been stirring the pot again, but I'll get you in." As they waited, Aiden fidgeted, his gaze darting to the wanted posters on the wall, faces frozen in perpetual guilt. Elizabeth squeezed his hand, a silent anchor. How had it come to this? Her life, once a tapestry of quiet joys, nursing shifts that saved lives, boys' soccer games under Friday night lights, stolen moments with Finn that had fizzled into friendship, now reduced to this desperate gambit. Anna Devane emerged moments later, her red hair pulled into a severe bun, her expression a mask of professional detachment cracked only by the faint lines of exhaustion around her eyes. She'd seen it all in Port Charles. Assassinations, resurrections, the endless tango with Valentine Cassadine. "Elizabeth," she said, gesturing them inside. The office was a sanctum of organized clutter. Maps pinned to walls marking WSB leads, a half-empty teacup on the desk, a photo of her daughter Robin beaming from a frame. Dante mentioned urgency. "Sit." They did, the leather chairs creaking under them. Aiden perched on the edge, clutching the envelope like a talisman. Elizabeth took a breath, the words spilling out in a rush. The accusations, the frame-up, Heather's shadow lurking in the periphery. She slid the envelope across the desk. "Aiden found this. It's proof. Photos, audio. It's Heather, Anna. She's behind it, trying to destroy me to, I don't know, reclaim some twisted version of family." Anna's fingers, elegant and steady, opened the flap. She extracted the contents methodically. The printed photos, time-stamped from 2 nights ago, showing Heather's unmistakable profile in the dim park light, her wild curls haloed by a street lamp, the audio file on a thumb drive, voices murmuring about the Weber girl, and plant the evidence at G. The note, scrawled in block letters, "Make it stick, HW." Anna's lips thinned as she listened, the tinny playback filling the room with malice. Aiden watched her face, searching for belief, for validation. When she looked up, her gaze was steel. "This is compelling, Elizabeth. If authentic, and I'll have forensics verify by morning, it could exonerate you. But Heather Weber? She's a ghost, slippery as they come. Last sighting was months ago, after that mess with Ryan Chamberlain." She leaned back, steepling her fingers. "Why now? What's her endgame?" Elizabeth hesitated, glancing at Aiden. "It's personal. Always has been. But with Lucky back, everything's unraveling. The family's under the microscope, Lulu's surgery looming. Heather's fixated on me as the weak link, the one who stole her life. It was more than that, of course. Heather had whispered threats in stolen moments, vows to dismantle the life Elizabeth had built from the ashes of her own fractured childhood. But admitting the depth of that madness felt like inviting it in. Anna nodded slowly, her mind already mapping contingencies. "We'll move on this quietly. Protective custody for you and the boys, at least until we bring her in. Dante." She buzzed the intercom, and moments later, her trusted detective appeared. "Escort Elizabeth and Aiden home. Double the patrol on their street." As they rose to leave, Aiden's voice cut through the tension, small but resolute. "Commissioner? My dad's coming. Lucky. He knows Heather, he fought her before. Maybe he can help." Anna's eyes softened fractionally. "Lucky Spencer. Yes, he's due in tomorrow. The liver match for Lulu is a miracle, but miracles in this town come with strings." She paused, studying the boy. If he has insights, we'll hear them. You're brave for this, Aiden. Poor Charles owes you. Outside, the rain had eased to a mist, the world softer, less accusatory. Dante tailed them home in his unmarked car, a silent guardian against the night. Elizabeth's house on the outskirts glowed warmly, a beacon amid the uncertainty. Porch light on, courtesy of Cameron or Jake, her older sons who should be asleep but rarely were when trouble brewed. As they pulled into the driveway, Aiden turned to her, his face illuminated by the dashboard glow. Mom, I didn't want you to go down for something you didn't do. Dad always said the truth is the only thing that lasts. Tears pricked Elizabeth's eyes. Your dad was right. And you're the best part of both of us. She pulled him into a hug, inhaling the scent of rain and boyish soap, a momentary shield against the storm. But sleep was a luxury denied that night. Elizabeth lay awake in her bed, the house creaking like an old ship, her mind replaying the day's horrors. The accusations had started subtly. A missing vial from the evidence locker at GH, logged out under her name. A witness statement from a concerned colleague claiming she'd been seen arguing with Drew hours before the shooting. Hamilton Finn had vouched for her, his testimony a lifeline, but even his credibility was questioned, tangled as it was in his own history with the QS. And now Heather, that venomous spider, weaving her web from the shadows. By dawn the city stirred, gray light filtering through lace curtains. Elizabeth rose early, brewing coffee strong enough to scour regrets, while Aiden wolfed down cereal at the kitchen table, his phone buzzing with texts from school friends oblivious to the drama. No school today, she announced, ruffling his hair. We're laying low until Anna sorts this. The call came at 9:17 a.m., Anna's crisp British accent cutting through the static. Forensics confirmed the evidence, fingerprints on the note match Heather's from her last arrest. We're issuing an APB. But there's a complication. Lucky's plane landed an hour ago. He's at GH with Laura prepping for tests. He wants to see you. Says it's about Aiden. Elizabeth's stomach flipped. Lucky. After all these years, his name still evoked a kaleidoscope of emotions. Love's first bloom in that drafty cabin, the terror of the hostage crisis, the quiet nights nursing Aiden through fevers while Lucky strummed his guitar by firelight. Their co-parenting had been a patchwork of emails and holidays, Aiden shuttling between coasts like a reluctant diplomat. But now, with Lulu's life on the line, Lucky was all in. His return a seismic shift. She bundled Aiden into the car, the drive to General Hospital a blur of autumn leaves skittering across the asphalt. The hospital loomed, its white walls a sterile sentinel, corridors echoing with beeps and hurried footsteps. They found Lucky in a private lounge off the ICU, his lean frame silhouetted against the window overlooking the harbor. He turned as they entered, and time folded in on itself. Jonathan Jackson's portrayal captured the wear of wanderlust, faint lines etching his forehead, stubble shadowing his jaw, but those eyes vivid as the Irish Sea, lit with unfeigned joy. Aiden, he breathed, crossing the room in 2 strides to envelop his son in an embrace that lifted him off the ground. Aiden laughed, a sound like bells clinging tight. Look at you, kid. Taller than me already? Impossible. Genetics, Aiden quipped, pulling back with a grin that mirrored his father's. Mom says I got your height and her brains. Lucky's gaze shifted to Elizabeth, lingering with an intensity that made her breath catch. Liz, you look incredible. As always. There was no artifice, just raw honesty, the kind that had always disarmed her. She managed a nod, throat tight. Lucky, welcome back. How are the tests? He waved it off, though fatigue shadowed his features. They're poking and prodding, but the match is solid. Lulu's got a fighting chance. He paused, sobering. Laura filled me in on the edges, your situation. Anna called too. Heather. Christ, Liz, why didn't you reach out sooner? I handled it, she said, defensive reflex kicking in. Like always. His jaw tightened, a flicker of old arguments resurfacing. Handling it alone isn't strength. It's isolation. Aiden told me bits on the way here, showed me the photos on his phone. That boy's got more guts than half the cops in this town. He ruffled Aiden's hair again, pride swelling his chest. But we do this together now. Spencer's stick. Aiden beamed, but Elizabeth saw the undercurrent, the unspoken history, the years Lucky had missed, the birthdays and little league games observed through photos. There's more, she said, sinking into a chair, the weight of confession pressing down. She recounted the night in the park, Aiden's chase, the evidence drop at the PCPD. Lucky listened, his face a storm cloud, fists clenching at the mention of Heather's name. That woman's poison, he growled. I tangled with her years ago, back when she was playing Esme's puppet master. She's got no boundaries, no soul. If she's targeting you. He trailed off, eyes darkening. I know her patterns. The mind games, the misdirection. Let me talk to Anna. I've got contacts from my aid work overseas, people who track psychos like her. Elizabeth hesitated. Your priority is Lulu. The surgery can wait an hour, he interjected gently. Family first, Liz. All of it. What followed was a whirlwind. Lucky commandeered a conference room, dialing Anna on speaker while Aiden sketched timelines on a whiteboard, his marker squeaking with urgency. Anna arrived with Dante in tow, laptops open to surveillance feeds. Lucky dove in, his voice steady as he dissected Heather's MO. The anonymous tips traced to burner phones, the paint on Aiden's bag matching a brand sold at a dive bar Heather frequented. She's holed up somewhere peripheral, he theorized, tapping the map. Not Ferncliff, too obvious. Try the old Spencer warehouse by the docks. She always circles back to family haunts. Anna's eyes narrowed appreciatively. You've kept your edge, Spencer. We'll raid at dusk. Low light favors us. She turned to Elizabeth. You're clear preliminarily. The DA's dropping charges pending full verification. But stay vigilant. As the meeting broke, Lucky pulled Elizabeth aside, the room emptying like a stage after the final act. I meant what I said about family, he murmured, his hand brushing hers, a spark long dormant igniting. When this is over, we talk. Really talk. About us, about Aiden, about what Port Charles stole and what we can reclaim. Her pulse raced, a treacherous hope blooming. Lucky, it's been years. Lives changed. Paths diverged, he agreed, his thumb tracing her knuckles. But rivers find the sea eventually. Before she could respond, Aiden bounded back in, oblivious to the charge in the air. Dad, show Mom the postcard trick, the one from Paris. Lucky chuckled, the moment shattering into something lighter, but the promise lingered, a thread weaving through the chaos. Dusk fell like a velvet curtain, the raid unfolding with cinematic precision. Lucky insisted on observing from the command van, his aid worker instincts overriding medical advice. Dante led the charge, breaching the warehouse's rusted doors, flashlights slicing the gloom. Shouts echoed, scuffles ensued, and then Heather, cornered in a nest of crates, her eyes wild with cornered animal fury. Elizabeth sent you? That little ingrate. She spat as cuffs clicked, but her venom faltered under the weight of evidence bagged and tagged. By midnight, the PCPD bullpen was a hive of activity, statements transcribed, Heather remanded to a max security cell. Elizabeth stood at the window, overlooking the now calm streets, Aiden dozing on a couch nearby. Lucky joined her, two silhouettes against the glass. It's over, he said simply. Not quite, she replied, turning to him. But closer. He smiled, that crooked grin that had stolen her heart at 16. Then let's finish it. Dinner? Tomorrow after Lulu's out of surgery. Just us three. She nodded, the yes forming unbidden. In Port Charles, salvation was never tidy, but tonight, with the evidence delivered and the shadows retreating, it felt possible. Aiden stirred, murmuring in sleep, and Elizabeth knew. Whatever came next, they faced it as a unit, bound by blood, by battles won, by the unyielding luck of the Spencers. But Port Charles never slept easy. As Lucky walked them to the car, a figure lurked in the alley across the street, Charles, the hulking enforcer Heather had employed, his loyalty not so easily severed. He watched, phone in hand, dialing a number that connected to deeper shadows. The Pikeman Syndicate, Brennan's lingering tentacles, all too eager to exploit the fractures in the Spencer-Weber alliance. The call ended with a promise. The kid's the key. Grab him and they all fold. Morning broke crisp and clear, the harbor sparkling like fool's gold. Elizabeth dropped Aiden at school under heavy police escort, her kiss lingering on his forehead. Be safe. Call if anything feels off. Lucky met her at JH for Lulu's pre-op consult. Laura Collins enveloping them both in a hug that smelled of lavender and worry. "My boys," she whispered, her mayoral poise cracking. "You've saved her, Lucky. And Liz, thank you for bringing him home." The surgery stretched into eternity, hours marked by coffee refills and hushed prayers in the chapel. When the surgeon emerged, scrubs bloodied but smile triumphant, cheers erupted. Spencer's, Webb's, Corinthoses, a tapestry of Port Charles's intertwined fates. Lulu would wake slowly to a world remade. That evening, as promised, they dined at the Floating Rib, Aiden chattering about soccer tryouts, Lucky regaling with tales of Moroccan souks, Elizabeth laughing freer than she had in months. But under the table, Lucky's foot nudged hers, a silent vow. Later, as Aiden crashed on the couch mid-movie, they stepped onto the porch, stars wheeling overhead. "I never stopped loving you," Lucky confessed, voice rough. "The road took me away, but it led back here." Elizabeth leaned into him, the warmth of his arm a balm. "Me too. But it's not just us anymore. The boys, the life I've built. We build on it," he said, cupping her face. "Together." Their kiss was tentative at first, then deepening, a reclamation amid the ruins. Port Charles watched, as it always did, with bated breath for the next twist. Yet danger simmered. Charles, emboldened by Heather's capture, struck 2 days later. Aiden vanished during recess, a note left in his locker. "For the nurse's sins." Panic rippled through the school, amber alerts blaring. Elizabeth collapsed into Lucky's arms at the PCPD, her world fracturing anew. Lucky didn't hesitate, his face hardening into the warrior who'd survived blackouts and betrayals. "We'll get him back. I promise." The search mobilized the city. Sonny's Doc's contacts, Anna's WSB intel, even Jason Morgan, drawn from his own shadows, lending his unerring tracking skills. Clues led to an abandoned boathouse, Charles's hideout, where Aiden's muffled cries pierced the night. The rescue was brutal poetry, Lucky charging in, fists flying, Dante covering with precise shots, Elizabeth waiting in the van, heart in her throat. Aiden emerged unscathed, save for bruises clinging to his father. "I knew you'd come, Dad." In the aftermath, charges piled against Charles, Pikeman's threats unraveling under federal scrutiny. Heather from her cell, seethed in silence, her empire crumbled. Weeks blurred into healing. Lulu stirred, her first words a raspy "Lucky?" That broke hearts. Family dinners became ritual, Aiden thriving under dual parental sons. Elizabeth and Lucky navigated the new normal. Stolen nights, co-parenting calls, the slow rebuild of trust. But Port Charles demanded vigilance. Whispers of Cyrus Renault's influence lingered. A syringe in a drawer, a threat in a shadow. Yet with evidence delivered, Liz saved and Lucky anchored, they stood firm.